The Medici family ruled Florence and later all of Tuscany for centuries. They were patrons of incredible art, builders of magnificent palaces, and architects of political power. Their name still echoes with grandeur and influence. But behind the shimmering silks and the gleaming marble of their court, a different kind of story unfolded. A story of forbidden passion, dangerous desires, and scandalous affairs that ripped through the gilded halls and left reputations shattered. These are not the tales you read in dry history books. These are the shocking secrets, the whispers that turn into screams, the love affairs that risked everything for the Medici princes. These men, born into unbelievable wealth and power, often found themselves entangled in webs of desire that defied convention, challenged the church, and even ended in tragedy. Their choices sent shockwaves across Europe, proving that even the most powerful families could not escape the fiery consequences of unchecked passion. Here are 5 of the most scandalous affairs that stained the Medici name. Number 1. The unholy secret of Cardinal Giovanni. As Cardinal Giovanni de' Medici stood at a crossroads of destiny and a life shrouded in secrets. Born the second son of the mighty Grand Duke Cosimo I, he was destined for the highest echelons of the church. Not for him the sword or the crown. His path was the scarlet robe of a cardinal. From a young age, Giovanni possessed a keen intellect and a serious demeanor. He was thoughtful, observant, and deeply committed to his studies, qualities that pleased his stern father immensely. Cosimo I, ever the pragmatist, saw in Giovanni a valuable asset, a Medici voice within the powerful College of Cardinals, protecting Florentine interests in Rome. Giovanni climbed the ecclesiastical ladder with remarkable speed. He was made an archbishop at a tender age, and then in 1560, barely out of his teenage years, he received the coveted red hat of a cardinal from Pope Pius IV. This was a triumph for the Medici, securing their influence in the spiritual capital of the world. Giovanni moved to Rome, embracing his role with diligence and seriousness. He participated in papal elections, advised on matters of faith and state, and represented his family with quiet dignity. He was the very model of a Renaissance churchman, intellectual, cultured, and seemingly pious. But beneath that solemn exterior, a different kind of longing stirred. The vows of celibacy, a cornerstone of the priesthood, were a heavy burden for many. For Giovanni, a young man of noble birth, living in a vibrant, passionate city, temptation was never far. And temptation, it seemed, took the form of a woman named Lucrezia Frescobaldi. Lucrezia was no ordinary Florentine lady. She hailed from an old, respected, noble family, one with its own lineage and pride. She was intelligent, resourceful, and possessed a quiet charm that could draw anyone in. It is unclear exactly how the paths of the young cardinal and the Florentine noblewoman first crossed. Perhaps it was during a clandestine visit Giovanni made back to Florence, escaping the rigid formality of Rome. Perhaps it was through mutual acquaintances, whispers in the salons of the Florentine elite. What is known is that their connection was immediate, intense, and deeply forbidden. Their affair was not a fleeting dalliance. It was a serious, deeply felt relationship conducted under a cloak of absolute secrecy. A cardinal, a prince of the church, could not be seen to violate his sacred vows. The consequences for both of them, if discovered, would be catastrophic. For Giovanni, it meant utter disgrace, the stripping of his titles, and potentially even imprisonment or exile. For Lucrezia, it meant ruin, social ostracization, and perhaps even worse. The very foundations of their lives depended on keeping their love hidden from the prying eyes of the court, the watchful gaze of Rome, and the stern disapproval of the Grand Ducal family. Their meetings would have been fraught with tension and whispered arrangements. Perhaps they met in the twilight hours, cloaked figures, slipping through side entrances of palaces or in secluded gardens under the watchful moon. Every embrace, every shared glance was a dangerous gamble against discovery. Yet, their love persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. The passion between them defied the immense risks. Then came the undeniable proof of their forbidden love. Lucrezia became pregnant. This was the ultimate betrayal of Giovanni's vows, a tangible testament to their secret. The news must have plunged them both into a maelstrom of fear and desperate planning. How could they hide a child born out of wedlock, a child of a cardinal, from the world? The scandal would be monumental, shattering everything Giovanni had worked for and destroying Lucrezia's future entirely. The decision was made with heavy hearts and shrewd minds. The child would be born in secret, far from the prying eyes of the Florentine court. Arrangements were discreetly made, likely through loyal, trusted servants or family members who valued loyalty above all else. When the child, a son, was born, he was given the name Cosimo. This was a deliberate choice, linking him to the powerful Medici lineage, yet his true parentage remained a closely guarded secret. He would be raised quietly away from the glittering, dangerous world of the court. His existence was a constant, ticking time bomb, a secret that could explode at any moment. Giovanni continued his duties as cardinal, outwardly composed and devout. But the secret of his son must have weighed heavily on him. A constant ache in his conscience, a constant fear of exposure. He could not openly acknowledge his child, could not openly express his paternal love. He was forced to live a double life, one of solemn religious duty and another of hidden, forbidden fatherhood. Lucrezia, too, bore a heavy burden, raising her son in the shadows, unable to claim the father of her child without destroying them all. The family, particularly Grand Duke Cosimo I, was likely unaware of the full extent of this secret, or, if they suspected, they chose to ignore it, prioritizing the image of their powerful cardinal. The Medici were masters of managing scandal, of burying inconvenient truths beneath layers of courtly silence and political maneuvering. The weight of his dual life, or perhaps a more common ailment of the age, took its toll on Cardinal Giovanni. In 1562, at the tragically young age of 19, he suddenly fell ill with a fever. He died rapidly, shocking the entire court and family. His death was a terrible blow, a promising life cut short. For Lucrezia, it was a devastating loss, both of the man she loved and of any hope for their son to be openly acknowledged. With Giovanni gone, the secret of young Cosimo's parentage became even more delicate. However, the Medici, ever conscious of their bloodline, did not entirely abandon the boy. Though never officially recognized as the son of a cardinal in any public document that would tarnish Giovanni's memory, young Cosimo was quietly given an education and a position within the extended Medici sphere of influence. He lived his life in a kind of twilight of visible presence, whose origins were conveniently obscured. He grew to be a respectable man, a military commander, and was granted the title of Knight of Santo Stefano. The affair of Cardinal Giovanni and Lucrezia Frescobaldi remained a hushed tale, a testament to the powerful allure of forbidden love and the extreme lengths to which people went to protect their deepest secrets in the rigid world of the Renaissance. It proved that even within the most sacred institutions, human passions could burn fiercely, leaving behind an undeniable legacy, even if it was one spoken of only in whispers for generations. Number 2, the shadow and the scandal of Giovanni Gaston. Giovanni Gaston de' Medici, the last Grand Duke of Tuscany, bore a burden heavier than any of his predecessors. He was the final male heir of a dynasty that had ruled Florence for over 3 centuries. His life and his personal choices would determine the very fate of the Medici name, and those choices would prove to be a source of constant scandal, culminating in the ignominious end of a powerful line. Born in 1671, Giovanni Gaston was the younger son of Grand Duke Cosimo III. From an early age, he was an oddity within the family. While his elder brother, Ferdinando, was a celebrated patron of the arts and a dashing figure, Giovanni Gaston was withdrawn, sensitive, and intellectual. He preferred books and quiet contemplation to hunting or courtly socializing. His father, Cosimo III, was a devout, almost puritanical man whose strict religious beliefs clashed sharply with Giovanni Gaston's more liberal and philosophical inclinations. This fundamental difference created a deep, unspoken rift between father and son. As the years passed, the need for an heir became paramount. Ferdinando, despite his charisma, suffered from ill health and had no legitimate children. The pressure fell heavily on Giovanni Gaston. He was forced into a political marriage, a common fate for European royalty. In 1697, he was wed to Anna Maria Franziska of Saxe-Lauenburg, a wealthy but notoriously difficult princess. The union was meant to secure the Medici future, but it instantly became a tragic farce. Anna Maria Franziska was the opposite of Giovanni Gastone in every way. She was boisterous, rough, and preferred the company of her servants and animals to the cultured, refined world of her new husband. She was known for her vulgar habits, her heavy drinking, and her crude language. Giovanni Gastone, sensitive and intellectual, found himself trapped in a nightmare. Their marriage was a disaster from the first moment. They despised each other. Anna Maria refused to leave her remote castle in Bohemia, and Giovanni Gastone, utterly miserable, found himself held captive there, suffering her abuse and mockery. This forced marriage and its utter failure was the first major scandal of Giovanni Gastone's life, though it was largely hidden from the public eye. After years of this torment, Giovanni Gastone finally managed to escape his unhappy marriage and return to Florence, but the damage was done. The man who returned was deeply scarred, disillusioned, and even more reclusive. He rarely left his palace, abandoning the courtly duties and public appearances expected of a Grand Duke. This retreat from public life became a scandal in itself. Instead of governing, Giovanni Gastone descended into a life of increasing decadence and isolation. He stopped caring about his appearance, growing obese and slovenly. He often remained in bed for days, surrounded by his strange collection of art and books. His palace became a hub of rumors and whispers, a place where the expected courtly decorum dissolved into something far more unconventional. His personal life became the subject of intense gossip and condemnation across Europe. Giovanni Gastone surrounded himself with a peculiar group of male companions known derisively as the Responti. These were young men, often of low birth, whom the Grand Duke showered with favors, lavish gifts, and titles. They acted as his personal attendants, companions, and, it was widely believed, much more. The Responti essentially ran the palace, controlling access to the Grand Duke and indulging in their own excesses at the state's expense. The open favoritism shown to these men, combined with Giovanni Gastone's complete neglect of his Grand Ducal duties and his failed marriage, created a profound scandal. It was not just whispers behind closed doors, it was an open secret that the last Medici Grand Duke preferred the company of his Responti to his wife, or indeed to any woman at all. His preference for male companionship was starkly evident and widely discussed, especially given the crucial need for a legitimate heir. The Medici dynasty was literally dying out, and the Grand Duke seemed to do nothing to stop it. His sister, Anna Maria Luisa de' Medici, who was a formidable and pious woman, was appalled by her brother's lifestyle. She tried repeatedly to intervene, to bring him back to court, to force him to engage with his duties, and perhaps even consider a concubine to produce an heir. But Giovanni Gastone stubbornly resisted. He found solace in his reclusion, his eccentric collections, and the unconventional relationships that brought him a twisted kind of comfort. The parties held within the Pitti Palace were infamous. Lavish banquets, often occurring at night, were attended by the Responti and their associates, filled with drinking and merriment that shocked the more traditional elements of Florentine society. The Grand Duke, once a keen intellect, seemed to have sunk into a mire of self-indulgence and melancholy, punctuated by bouts of forced conviviality with his chosen companions. This increasingly public display of a Grand Duke, who seemed to revel in his own depravity, and who actively avoided his duty to produce an heir, was an unimaginable disgrace for the proud Medici family. The European powers watched with bated breath, knowing that the end of the Medici line was approaching and that the future of Tuscany was in question. The scandalous behavior of Giovanni Gastone ensured that the transition of power would be anything but smooth. Giovanni Gastone died in 1737, leaving no children, no legitimate male heir. With his death, the long and storied reign of the Medici Grand Dukes of Tuscany came to an end. His scandalous personal life, his failed marriage, and his unconventional relationships had sealed the fate of his family's rule. He left behind a legacy, not of power and art, but of a family line, brought to an ignominious end by the very last Grand Duke's choices and secret life. Number 3, the Duke's dark desire for Luisa Strozzi. Alessandro de' Medici was a man carved from controversy and shadowed by mystery. Born in 1510, his parentage was a subject of much speculation. Many believed him to be the illegitimate son of Lorenzo de' Medici, Duke of Urbino, while others whispered that he was actually the son of Pope Clement VII, himself a Medici. What was undeniable was his dark skin, inherited from his mother, a servant, or possibly even a slave, leading to his nickname Il Moro, the Moor. He was appointed the first Duke of Florence in 1532, a move orchestrated by Pope Clement VII and backed by Emperor Charles V. His rule was autocratic, marked by military might and a heavy hand, alienating many of the Florentine elite who clung to the republican ideals of the past. Alessandro was a man of unchecked appetites. He was known for his love of lavish living, his disdain for political duties, and, most notoriously, for his insatiable pursuit of women. He was married to Margaret of Parma, the illegitimate daughter of Emperor Charles V, a union meant to solidify Medici power. But his marriage did little to curb his wandering eye or his scandalous behavior. His nights were often spent carousing, his days in indolence, and his desires frequently led him down dangerous paths. Among the families who fiercely opposed Alessandro's tyrannical rule were the Strozzi, one of Florence's most ancient and powerful noble houses. Filippo Strozzi, the patriarch, was a staunch Republican, a man who openly defied the Duke. His family became a focal point of anti-Medici sentiment, often operating from exile. It was into this politically charged atmosphere that the beauty of Luisa Strozzi emerged. Luisa was Filippo's daughter, a young woman of breathtaking beauty, sharp intellect, and a reputation for virtue. She was married to Luigi Capponi, a member of another prominent Florentine family. Luisa represented everything. The Strozzi family stood for old Florentine nobility, pride, and an unyielding spirit against the Medici tyranny. She was a woman of high standing, and her marriage was a symbol of alliances within the Florentine elite. Alessandro, however, was not one to be deterred by social standing, marital vows, or political allegiances. He had seen Luisa, undoubtedly at some courtly gathering or in the public square, and he was immediately captivated. His desire for her became an obsession, a dark fire that burned within him. To Alessandro, Luisa was not just a woman, she was a prize, a symbol of his power, a conquest that would prove he could have anyone, even from the most defiant of his enemies' families. His pursuit of Luisa was relentless and utterly scandalous. The Duke, a married man and ruler of Florence, openly displayed his infatuation with another man's wife, a woman from a politically hostile family. He used his immense power to orchestrate meetings, to send gifts, to press his unwanted attentions upon her. Luisa, a woman of virtue and loyalty to her husband and family, resisted him with all her strength. She rejected his advances, publicly and privately, refusing to compromise her honor or that of her family. This defiance only seemed to fuel Alessandro's dark obsession. The more she resisted, the more he wanted her. The affair, or rather, Alessandro's scandalous pursuit of Luisa, became the talk of Florence. Whispers turned to open gossip in the piazzas and hushed conversations in the drawing rooms. The audacity of the Duke, the virtuous resistance of Luisa, and the simmering rage of the Strozzi family created an explosive atmosphere. This was not just a private indiscretion, it was a public humiliation, a challenge to the honor of a powerful family, and a glaring example of Alessandro's abuse of power. The tension reached a boiling point. The Strozzi family, already at odds with the Duke, saw this as the ultimate insult. a direct assault on their reputation and their very existence. They were caught in an impossible situation to defy the Duke and risk everything, or submit and endure unbearable shame. Luisa's husband, Luigi Capponi, was reportedly furious and humiliated, his honor deeply wounded by the Duke's brazen pursuit of his wife. The situation came to a tragic and mysterious end. In 1537, just months after the most intense period of Alessandro's pursuit, Luisa Strozzi suddenly fell ill and died. The official cause was a sudden illness, a fever perhaps. But the rumors that immediately swept through Florence and beyond were far more sinister. Many believed she had been poisoned. The finger of suspicion pointed directly at Duke Alessandro. Had he poisoned her out of frustration, enraged by her continued rejection? Or had he ordered her death to silence the scandal, to remove the source of his public embarrassment? Some even suggested that her own family, to preserve her honor and their own, might have had a hand in her death, preferring death to dishonor at the Duke's hands. No definitive proof ever emerged. The truth remained shrouded in the dark alleys of Florentine history. But the damage was done. Luisa's death, whether by natural causes or by foul play, became intrinsically linked to Alessandro's scandalous pursuit. It further fueled the hatred of the Strozzi family and the Republican exiles. The tragic end of Luisa Strozzi was one of the many grievances that propelled Alessandro's cousin, Lorenzino de' Medici, into action. Lorenzino, a disillusioned intellectual and a secret Republican, initially seemed to be Alessandro's trusted confidant and companion in his dissolute escapades. But Lorenzino harbored a deep resentment for the Duke's tyranny and his depraved lifestyle. The scandalous pursuit of Luisa Strozzi and her subsequent death only solidified Lorenzino's resolve. In January 1537, Lorenzino lured Alessandro to a secret rendezvous, promising him a meeting with a beautiful woman. Instead, he murdered the Duke in cold blood. The scandalous affair of Alessandro de' Medici and Luisa Strozzi, though ending tragically, left an indelible mark. It highlighted the moral decay of the Duke's rule, the extreme lengths to which a powerful man would go to satisfy his desires, and the devastating consequences that could ripple through the highest echelons of society, even leading to assassination and the downfall of a ruler. It was a dark testament to the intersection of power, desire, and fatal consequences in Renaissance Florence. Number 4. Pietro's path of depravity and disgrace. Pietro de' Medici, born in 1554, was the youngest son of the formidable Grand Duke Cosimo I and his Spanish wife Eleonora di Toledo. Unlike his brothers, who displayed intelligence, ambition, or piety, Pietro was a disaster from the start. He was a difficult child, an unruly youth, and grew into a man whose life was a continuous saga of debauchery, extravagance, and shocking violence. He was the black sheep of the Medici family, a constant source of embarrassment and scandal for his powerful relatives. From an early age, Pietro showed a profound disdain for duty and responsibility. He was lazy, often absent from court functions, and displayed a shocking lack of self-control. His primary interests lay in gambling, drinking, and women, pursuits which he followed with reckless abandon. He squandered vast sums of money, constantly demanding more from his family, who were often forced to cover his enormous debts to protect the Medici name from further disgrace. His affairs were not passionate love stories, but rather a string of fleeting, often coercive liaisons with women of all social classes. Pietro used his power, his wealth, and his intimidating personality to take what he wanted. He kept numerous mistresses, openly flaunting his indiscretions despite his marriage to Eleonora di Garzia di Toledo, a cousin of his mother. Eleonora di Garzia di Toledo was herself a spirited and proud woman. Her marriage to Pietro was arranged for political reasons, a union between two powerful families. It was a deeply unhappy match from the beginning. Pietro neglected her, treated her with contempt, and openly pursued other women. Eleonora, isolated and humiliated, was herself rumored to have sought solace in other relationships, driven to desperation by her husband's cruelty. This created a toxic atmosphere, a constant backdrop of suspicion, jealousy, and mutual resentment. The scandal surrounding Pietro was not just about his affairs, it was about the sheer depravity of his character and the violence that often accompanied his relationships. He was known for his explosive temper and his cruelty. The women in his life, whether wives or mistresses, were often subjected to his erratic behavior, his demands, and his violent outbursts. His gambling debts grew, his behavior became more erratic, and the whispers about his dissolute life grew louder throughout Florence. The peak of Pietro's infamy and the most horrifying chapter of his scandalous life came in 1576. His wife Eleonora was at the Medici villa of Cafaggiolo. Pietro, consumed by suspicion and a violent rage, accused her of infidelity. The precise details of what happened next are chilling, even by the standards of the time. Pietro, without trial or public process, strangled his own wife to death. The murder was a brutal, shocking act carried out in cold blood. The official story, quickly circulated by Pietro's brother, Grand Duke Francesco I, was that Eleonora had died suddenly of a heart attack or a seizure. But everyone at court and indeed across Florence knew the grim truth. The Grand Duke went to great lengths to cover up the murder, primarily to protect the family's honor, and to avoid a major international incident with Eleonora's powerful Spanish relatives. Pietro himself was quickly sent away from Florence, exiled to Spain for a time, though his crimes were never formally punished. Even in exile, Pietro continued his life of dissipation. His affairs continued, as did his reckless spending and his erratic behavior. He proved incapable of managing any responsibility, always a burden on his family. His life was a stark contrast to the sophisticated and refined image the Medici family desperately tried to cultivate. He was a living testament to the dark side of inherited power, a prince who used his status to indulge his basest desires, leaving a trail of broken hearts, ruined reputations, and finally, a murdered wife in his wake. Pietro eventually died in Spain in 1604, not of violence, but of what was described as a stroke of apoplexy, likely a result of his long, unhealthy life of excess. His death was met with relief rather than sorrow by many within the Medici family. His entire life was a scandal, a continuous string of affairs, violence, and general depravity that cast a long dark shadow over the illustrious Medici name. He was the embodiment of a prince who chose to walk a path of self-destruction, taking others down with him in his wake. Number 5. Francesco and Bianca, the passion that poisoned a dynasty. Francesco I de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany, was a man of intense, often hidden passions. Born in 1541, he was the eldest son of the formidable Grand Duke Cosimo I. Francesco inherited his father's intelligence and his love for the sciences, spending countless hours in his private laboratories experimenting with alchemy and metallurgy, but he lacked Cosimo's political acumen and his charm. He was a reserved, often distant man who preferred the quiet solitude of his studies to the demands of court. His quiet demeanor, however, masked a fiery heart, one that would lead him into one of the most scandalous and tragic love affairs in Medici history. In 1565, Francesco was married to Archduchess Joanna of Austria, a Habsburg princess, daughter of Emperor Ferdinand I. It was a powerful dynastic marriage, cementing the Medici's rise in European politics. Joanna was pious, intelligent, and refined, but she was also shy and somewhat melancholy. Their marriage was cold and dutiful, producing many daughters, but only one sickly male heir who died young. Francesco found little warmth or companionship in his imperial wife, and his heart soon strayed. His gaze fell upon Bianca Capello, a Venetian noblewoman of breathtaking beauty and striking charm. Bianca was not a Medici, nor was she unattached. She had secretly eloped from Venice to Florence in 1563 with a young Florentine bank clerk named Pietro Bonaventure, escaping a forced marriage arranged by her powerful family. This elopement was already a scandal in itself, forcing her and Pietro to live in Florence under the protection of the Medici. From the moment Francesco saw Bianca, he was utterly captivated. She possessed a vivacity and allure that the reserved Joanna lacked. Bianca, for her part, quickly recognized the immense power of the Grand Duke's attention. Their relationship began discreetly, secret meetings arranged with the utmost care, whispers exchanged in the quiet corners of the Pitti Palace. Francesco showered Bianca with lavish gifts, jewels, and properties. He found solace and passion in her company, a stark contrast to the cold formality of his marriage. As their affair deepened, it became increasingly difficult to conceal. Bianca's rise in influence was undeniable. She was given a prominent residence, Palazzo di Bianca Capello, and began to appear more openly at court. The Grand Duchess Joanna, ever the dutiful wife, suffered in silence, humiliated by her husband's blatant infidelity. The Florentine court simmered with gossip and indignation. The European courts, especially the Habsburgs, watched with thinly veiled disapproval. The Grand Duke's open liaison with a married commoner was a major scandal, undermining the dignity of his position and insulting the powerful Austrian family. Bianca, ambitious and astute, was determined to secure her position. She knew her power lay in her connection to Francesco. She even sought to legitimize her presence, attempting to pass off a child she had with another man as her own with Francesco, a desperate gamble that failed. The affair continued for over a decade, a simmering public spectacle of a prince utterly obsessed with his mistress. Then, a dramatic shift occurred. In 1576, Pietro Bonaventura, Bianca's husband, was murdered in the streets of Florence. The circumstances were suspicious. While some accounts point to a jealous rival of Pietro, many believed it was orchestrated by Francesco, clearing the path for Bianca to become his legitimate consort. Soon after, in 1578, Grand Duchess Joanna of Austria died, officially from complications of childbirth. Her death, following so closely after Pietro Bonaventure's, sent shockwaves through Europe. Whispers of poison immediately followed, though no definitive proof ever emerged. With both obstacles removed, Francesco acted swiftly and scandalously. Just 2 months after Joanna's death, Francesco secretly married Bianca Capello. The secrecy was short-lived. The marriage was celebrated publicly in a lavish ceremony in 1579, granting Bianca the title of Grand Duchess of Tuscany. This act was an unprecedented affront to European royalty. A ruling Grand Duke had married his mistress, a commoner, barely 2 months after his imperial wife's death. The Habsburgs were furious, and other European courts were appalled. Bianca, now Grand Duchess, faced immense pressure. She was despised by many at court, particularly by Francesco's younger brother, Ferdinando, who saw her as an ambitious usurper and a threat to the Medici line. Bianca desperately wanted to produce an heir for Francesco, knowing that only a son would truly secure her position, but despite her efforts, no male child was born. The reign of Francesco and Bianca was marked by political instability and mounting debt. Their personal happiness, if it existed, was overshadowed by the constant scrutiny and the family tensions. The animosity between Francesco and Ferdinando, fueled by Bianca's influence and the shame she brought, grew to a dangerous level. In October 1587, Francesco and Bianca were together at the Medici villa of Poggio a Caiano when they both fell gravely ill. They died within hours of each other. The official cause was malaria, a common disease of the time. But the circumstances of their simultaneous deaths were so suspicious, so convenient for Ferdinando, that rumors of poisoning immediately erupted. Ferdinando, who was due to inherit the Grand Duchy anyway, stood to gain immensely from his brother's demise. The possibility of poison, administered by Ferdinando or his agents, has been debated by historians for centuries. Modern forensic analysis has even found traces of arsenic in their remains, though definitive proof of intentional poisoning remains elusive. The affair of Francesco and Bianca Capello was a saga of forbidden love, political intrigue, and ultimate tragedy. It was a scandal that defied conventions, challenged powerful dynasties, and ended in a cloud of suspicion and death. It remains one of the most captivating and disturbing chapters in the long and tumultuous history of the Medici Grand Dukes, a testament to the raw power of human desire and its devastating consequences.